hash it out before like one of the next commissioners meetings at some point. Kind of like the, what am I thinking of?
The handbook? Yeah, somebody else is working on it and they're gonna make a recommendation. Goes back to the maxim, one may delegate authority but not responsibility.
You bring it back, we don't like it, we're sending it back again.
The other thing we need to discuss a little bit while we got the jail up here, is the issue of,
Absolutely.
we got this thing approved, or they sent out a 50% design. Well, who said, okay, go ahead, that looks good? Our
George is golden.
Did they
Hey,
give
Brenda,
them authority?
he's golden too.
Tim did, did you do it?
He's
Did the
our,
previous
he's
board
our
do it?
insurance,
Yeah.
yes, he is
And I
golden.
think,
There's no control on this thing.
no. Yeah, we've gotta have some checks and balances in there, absolutely.
Probably.
Are we ready to bring up the CM stuff now?
I wouldn't be opposed to it, I mean, I've read a lot of that stuff, I don't know how much, you know,
I'm ready to make a recommendation, but that's just me.
Yeah.
For discussion. But we need to,
Where's your name tag up there?
It's on order.
Yes.
It's coming, I
not
promise.
official.
see, when you're new and you don't have a, you know, a tag over from the past one.
You carry your.
Yeah, I just brought mine with me, yeah.
I'm on back order.
Have you got the recording going yet? Is Tim gonna be here?
Yeah, he called, he said he'll be here pushing 4:30. We can set the clocks back about 5 minutes, we'll be good.
I actually got him going today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Brett, did he work today?
No,
It's supposed, not that I know of.
no, he was in here today.
Was it?
I think he was off for 8 days, but I'm not sure when the 8 days started.
I could never keep track of his schedule.
You should post it.
Yeah.
You can't get in trouble for not starting at 4:30, can you?
I don't think so. I mean, if someone were to say, hey, I planned for it to be 4:30 and I'm mad right now, I mean, I
All right.
guess.
Yeah, I always
If
see-
George wants to raise a stink, he can.
Is they still a seat here?
That we're not starting at exactly
Is there
4:30.
still a seat here?
There he
I
is.
think right there, I think the white.
No, that's, huh?
I think the white.
Okay.
For the week we have.
Give him one of
Nope.
these.
Came in, they said I had a temperature of 109.
You're back outside then, 109.
Is this yours?
Sorry I laid down this afternoon, I didn't get back up.
I don't know.
I assume.
Do you need one?
No, he's got, Tim's got one right there.
Yeah, we're okay. Call this meeting to order if you guys don't mind.
Yep.
We'll call this meeting to order, all stand and face the flag. Pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Britton Luther,
Here.
R.J. Donovan,
Here.
Tim Yocum present. Open issues, county property insurance. We'll come up to the mic.
Thank you.
You burned, that's a cheat sheet.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the comparables that you'd requested. George Smith, MJS Insurance, here to talk about the county's property and liability insurance. Just handed you out a comparable. Each year I do shop the insurance just to make sure everybody's coming in Right now, if you look at your list, Burnham and Flowers in the first column, that's who you're with right now, with a company called Trident. Last year, your expiring premium, not counting vehicle changes, things like that, was right around 122. Needless to say, when I got the renewal in from them, I was pretty shocked because the number that's on this page, their total premium came in at 153,165. The county had pretty good losses last year. I really could not find a reason why they increased it this much, other than Trident's just taking rate increases. So I did send this out for multiple quotes. To give you some comparisons, Gregory and Appel, that's One Beacon. Their quote came into the county for $192,464. Highland, which is Astra that I presented at the last meeting, the brochure on, came in at $127,387. Downey Insurance, Liberty Mutual, All Risk, and Travelers all failed in gel inspections. The corporate mandates are they can't go out and do gel inspections, so they wouldn't even give me a quote. As I talked about last meeting, Astra, to be honest with you, getting in with Astra is a pretty good deal. They're very picky on who they take. I've got some municipalities I pushed hard to get in there because they're a good company, and they wouldn't even look at them. So, you know, they came in, gave me what I thought was a very fair price for the county. And I mean, from a claim standpoint, from a service standpoint, they're fabulous to work with, from my viewpoint and your viewpoint. I do have quite a bit of experience with them, local municipalities, City of Clinton, Montgomery County, City of Crawfordsville, just some of them that are the closest.
Who did you say we had last year?
Trident. It's under this, it's Burnham and Flowers. That's who I used the very first call.
Burnham and Flowers, the same as last year?
Yes.
Okay, and that quote there is for this year, 147 is for this year.
That's right.
These are this year quotes. What was last year's quotes?
It was right up 122.
Okay, so if we go with the lowest one, which 127, we're still gaining, it still costs us $5,000 more than what it was.
That's right. It's still costing $5,000 more than your expiring premium, but in comparison, if I would have just renewed you with Trident, it would have cost you $25,000 more.
What is our losses for last year, or claims again?
Very minimal. And that's the thing that baffles me about the renewal premium, or renewal quote. In the sheriff's department, we had a total vehicle that had caught fire. Other than that, it was very minimal.
We have an outstanding claim right now for $49,000 for siren.
What's that?
Yes.
We can't hear you.
Yes. It's,
He couldn't hear what you said.
we have an outstanding claim for $49,000 right now, damage on a siren.
Yes. Yes.
And I can't get anybody to even return it.
Give me a call.
I think me and you would have talked, and now I'm working with another person now.
Yeah, Tiffany handles our claims, but she's part of us. So if you're having trouble with something, without a doubt.
Anyway, we can do anything to improve?
They've
Looks good, looks real good.
That's the thing. Your risk surveys came back, no recommendations. You know, no major recommendation. The risk advisors always have minor things you can do just because that's their job. But no, from a risk, you guys are a great risk and proved that last year.
Right.
Can we get a copy of that risk assessment,
You can. I don't have it with me, but I can get a copy of that.
if you would? Did they, when they went through, what facilities did they go through when they were here?
They always do a gel inspection. That's near and dear to every insurance company. That's the first thing they look at. They go out and look at them hard, and of course the state inspections on the gel. they do that, but then they just come out and look at the county properties. They, look for things, do the steps have handrails? Do we, mainly look at a liability standpoint is what they look for there, because that's where your big claims are.
Sure.
People slipping and falling, things like that.
This is also covering real estate and buildings also?
That is correct. This is.
So my question to you is, with increased investment of the jail extension and renovation of 18 or 20 million, how is that going to affect that policy?
It's all going to be a new valuation. Anytime you do anything, whether you build a pole barn, up at the state highway department, things like that, before anything like that starts, always bring me in the loop. 2 reasons. Number one, I need to know about builder's risk insurance. Who's carrying that? Is the contractor carrying it, or is the county going to be responsible for that? And anytime any of this stuff goes on, just get with me first, so that we can get everything answered, because vandalism, building sites, vandalism, things like that, you don't want theft of building materials to happen and find out the county's on the hook for it when you thought maybe that the contractor was. So anytime anything like that's going on, anything made the building, just always bring me in the loop.
Is there any way we could get any type of projection on that? How soon could we get something? I mean, estimate. I mean, is it going? In your opinion, is it going to be $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 more a year? I mean, with the change of that investment of going from this to that, is there any?
I can get those numbers to you. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that off cuff, but because on the buildings we use a flat fee, so much per 1,000, and I can get with my underwriters and get that to you.
Okay.
If the increase of property at the jail, if the value of the jail does go up, of course your insurance is going to go up because we've increased the value. So yes, I'll get you copies of a projection. How much are we looking at total as far as everything up there?
The budget of roughly was $22 million was the.
No, it's 16 million plus or minus. That includes soft costs and everything else that's in there.
We went to the council for lost some more amount.
But that's not the hard assets.
Okay, yeah, there's soft costs involved in there.
Right.
Yeah, correct. Okay, no, yes.
I'll get that to you guys.
But there will be a change in the amount of cost.
Yeah, always.
It's hard to sell jails though. They have very little value.
I'll bet they do. But yeah, there's always the variable on the insurance. What I get, the price I give you guys today, it's never going to be set in stone, because of the fact that if tomorrow you pick up 3 new vehicles and don't get rid of 3 vehicles, so the county has 3 more vehicles now. So, you sell a building, it's going to decrease. So that there's taking a snapshot as of the right now, this year cost of insurance, but as things change, there's going to be increases and decreases.
One question about cybersecurity. I know that they decided to do that last year, I think for the first time. I've read various things about cybersecurity being, maybe even having the insurance makes you a target for that matter.
I recommend it. My recommendation on that is because cybersecurity, especially a municipality, you've got a couple of things. Number one, ransomware. That's where people are getting into computers, locking them down, and saying we've won X amount of money. Cybersecurity is there to help give you monies to get around this, technologies to get around it. My other big one is if they breach the computers here for some reason, and all of a sudden get a bunch of date of births and or social security numbers from the payroll office, you guys are on the hook. If somebody gets out there, who's going to fix this? And the cybersecurity helps protect. It doesn't protect against it, but it gives you coverage to help offset the cost of getting everything straightened out.
To what effect is that what's the upper limit on that?
The upper limit on your site.
I'm not sure I should ask that.
You have
The umbrella policy, what is it up to?
the umbrella policy.
Uh-huh.
The umbrella policy. I believe we have that 5 million. Yes, the umbrella policy is 5 million.
Is that about standard compared to other towns and counties?
That looks a little expensive for $5 million, $20,000. Is that what I'm seeing?
The 20,418.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the price on the umbrella. Never forget the $5 million umbrella is going to be sitting over the top of the vehicles, and that's probably that's probably the big area. Umbrellas took a huge increase across the board this year. Even on personal lines, umbrellas went up.
And that's what I'm comparing it to, and this is 10 times, or 10 to that, 10 times more in the personal values on umbrella that I'm used to anyway.
Oh yeah, personal umbrellas pretty reasonable.
It's because we're a government entity that's so high.
The government entities, especially, and corporations, when you start running umbrellas, when you have a lot of vehicles, we've got the highway department out there running around, the sheriff's department and things like that.
Keeps coming back to the sheriff, doesn't it?
Sorry, Mike, but the number of automobiles, that's where you're going to get the biggest hit on this. Is of course the umbrella would cover if I slip on the sidewalk out here in Sioux County, the umbrella would step in also from that liability. But the autos is really what drives it, just because of the lawsuits coming through from vehicle accidents.
Where's the all three, the health, the property, and general liability?
Run that by me, I'm sorry.
There's three components to auto, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I guess under this one topic, it covers all three of those is in that price? Or
That
in
is
the
correct.
segment?
Yeah, sure.
And what is our limits on vehicles?
The vehicles, you have $1 million liability, okay? And then the umbrella sitting on top of that. As far as the value of the vehicles, it depends on the vehicles. Just like a typical insurance, we actual cash value the value of the vehicles. So whenever I add a new vehicle on here, whichever department sends me the values of those, we put that in, because almost everything has accessories on it. Light bars or permanently attached equipment to trucks. So I put that value in. You're covered comp and collision, comprehensive, fire, theft, hail, glass breakage, hit of deer, tree limb falls on it. You're covered with a $500 deductible. Collision, an accident that doesn't fall under comprehensive, back into a tree or involved in an accident that's your fault, you have a $500 deductible.
Okay. It's not quite related to this, but how did that come out with our high-speed chase that the vehicle was damaged? Do we recover anything from that?
The vehicle cost, I think we got beat up pretty bad on, but the equipment we recovered. They paid all but $1,000 medical in that, but for a $35,000 vehicle, we got a check for $14 grand. That's not unusual, that's happened to us before.
Is that because of depreciation or what?
That's right.
Okay.
It is.
98 or 100,000 miles on it, so a couple of years old, 2, 300.
Sure.
I did have a couple questions about this.
What?
Question, in an officer crash, total of our pickup truck, our dash cam clearly showed that the other person was on his side of the road, it was the other person's fault. They still took $1,000 deductible out of our check.
That works, Mike. That's what they call subrogation. So what'll happen is to get you back in a vehicle, whenever you're involved in an accident that's not your fault, okay? And this just goes across the board. You're involved in an accident that's not your fault, you have one of two choices. You can wait for the other insurance to settle up with you, or you can come back against your own insurance, get a vehicle, or get yours fixed, get a different vehicle, get that settled. You will always be out your deductible. Through subrogation, that's when our people will go back against the other insurance company of the party that's at fault and say, we want our money back. And at the time they settle that, that's when you get your deductible back. They can drag out. I've had them drag out anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 years. It's just the way it goes.
Did we recover the money?
Not yet.
It's still under...
It's still under that subrogation. And like I said, that's even on personal insurance. That's, you have a choice, if you're in a wreck, do I call my agent, have them fix it, or do I hope that this company will take care of it?
Any questions from anyone out there?
RJ, you care?
No, so your recommendation is Astra Insurance, right?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt? Okay.
Without a doubt.
I'd like to make a motion to go with George's recommendation of Astra Insurance for our county property insurance.
Let's state the amount.
For the amount of $127,387.
Got a motion on the floor for Highland Insurance for $127,387.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All that do not agree? Pass. I should have voted on that, and I'll say yes to confirm. Okay, appreciate your helping us out on this and coming and explaining things. Important that people come and explain, and helps us all understand better.
And hopefully everybody has my contact information. I'm being serious. Yeah. And I heard my cell phone number might even be floating around, so by all means, call me anytime there's a question or an issue, and I do mean that because that's what I'm here for. So, I do need some signatures. Should I wait till after the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll just wait till after the meeting and get those. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the coroner ordinance, and we have a copy of that up there. John, if you want to talk about that just briefly.
There's a statute that says that we can't pay the county coroner and his deputies until they take a course that's put on by the state, unless the commissioners find that there were unusual circumstances. In this case, we have an elected coroner who's a general practitioner of medicine, a graduate of Indiana University School of Medicine. He is employing deputies who are familiar with the commissioners as being capable of doing this job. They're signed up to take the course, they just have to wait for it. Rather than withhold their pay, the commissioners want to make the finding that there was an unusual circumstances required by the statute, and that they're making reasonable progress towards going through that course, and go ahead and start paying the coroner and his deputies now.
It's my understanding that the reason for some of the delay on this is that because of the COVID, that the state has spread that out, where the training's not available to everybody at the same time as it used to be, that they have to stage that or out so that each individual is so protected.
Also with this, we're dealing with a doctor. I think that this, as far as delaying payment, is probably in a case of therefore not having qualified people there and expect them to get their training done. And we do have that. Number two, I talked with John Wheat. He gave me a date of February the 28th that they are looking at, and where he's going to be attending his training. I guess it will be completed. They said it will be completed on 2/28. So we also got a date there. And the deputies, I think they are required to get their certification within 1 year. And I think some of his deputies, he already has that. So we're moving right along. Like I said, we're not dealing with someone who's not qualified by no means, but also he's incurring cost, and he's already been out on a couple calls and situations already. So
The other thing, Dr. Weed has also studied forensics, or I'm not sure what you call it, but forensics as well, that deals with the coroner's position. So I'm not sure they'll be teaching him or he'll be teaching them. So I make a motion that resolution number 2021, and do we assign, is this our first resolution?
I think it is.
001 then. By the Vermillion County Board of Commissioners, a resolution regarding the Vermillion County Coroner approved that his pay, according to the statement here, that he and his deputies be paid.
Second that motion.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All that disagree? Motion passed. Okay, moving right along. Next is jail renovation. I don't know if we want to address the water issue first. Do you want to do that, or would you rather, how would you want to?
Good evening. Sanjay Patel, project manager with RKW Corporation. The first part of the meeting, I'd like to open up with the water line issue that we have talked about for a little bit. HWC has a proposal in front of you to do the design for that. Eric Smith here is from HWC, and he'll be here to answer any questions that you have regarding that proposal.
Thank you, Cindy. Yes, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eric Smith with HWC Engineering. We have looked over several years at the issues with the water here at the jail, knowing the project was coming or being developed, and we've done work with Vermillion Rise, so we have a good idea of the system. We had put together a contract to extend potable water service as part of the project to the jail. What that will allow is, currently the jail has chlorination and UV systems that they have to operate continuously with a certified operator. This will allow those to be decommissioned and removed. The current water main that is serving the jail is part of the service water system from Vermillion Rise. That will in essence be used to provide fire suppression flows to the jail, the new jail. We've submitted that contract. Essentially, we would work with RTAW and provide our documents for the water main design and all of the other work associated with it. There's a highway crossing. We'll have to get an NDOT permit. But essentially, we would provide our documents, and that work could be bid with the jail project. And I believe I have submitted that contract to you for review, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. As far as timing, if we get started now, I think we can get everything ready so that it can all dovetail in with the jail project itself when it's ready to bid this spring.
One of the things I'd like to talk about and address is I work also with Hillsdale Water. I help take care of the plant and stuff. And one of the big things that the state and counties and small utilities are trying to do is to provide a connection that can be utilized in time of no water from another utility. IDM is very, correct me if I'm wrong, supports tying companies together, not physically, but you know what I'm recommending on this setup for Hillsdale is actually have a spool piece you could take out or put in, so there's no, you know, it's when you need it you can get it. And I think it's important that that we look at long range, especially even in our county, how do we utilize different water companies? I'm gonna get off on that, but how these other water companies, how can we all work together in case of emergency, you have a backup. And so the thing with Hillsdale, I requested it. Hillsdale Water is up there at the corner there. It provides service water to the county county garage, and we're looking at going down a little farther. We can talk about that if we want to, where we want to hook on. But the big thing is how do we provide a service to a water utility that's here, and how that water utility can provide a service back to the county as the jail and as Arise. So it's a very good option. It just helps in the community, not only Hillsdale, but it also helps our water company, our jail and Arise in case of an emergency. So does everyone know what we're talking about, what we're trying to do here?
I do, because I seen it last night, and Rick answered my questions on it, and I hadn't even considered that, but we had 2 or 3 incidents in 2020 where the jail didn't have the water, in one case, all day long. And that's a huge issue that most people don't realize. The state could have forced us to get all the inmates out of there. Vermillion Rise did provide bottled water for us, but a whole day of going without water is a huge issue inside of their sanitary lines, let alone just trying to get a drinking water. We're using bottled water to flush toilets, but it's expensive.
Mike,
But after seeing the drawing, that makes sense to where we can have a second connection from someplace else to kick on in that long period of time.
Yeah, and to add to that, with the setup we have now with bringing the potable line to the jail, your source of pressure is going to be the elevated tank at Vermillion Rise. The reason you were out of water for a day was because they lost power, and the service line that you're currently provided water from is a pump flow. So with not having the power, that's why you're out of water. So you will eliminate that potential problem in the future.
I do want to say, we're not talking about, I know, like I said, I manage Hillsdale, and I'll probably not vote on this. Would that be best if I work for Hillsdale Water this decision?
That's a decision you'd have to make, whether you feel you're
I abstain from
capable
it?
to vote or not.
Okay. But I'm being open about it. But the other thing I want to make sure that you know that, and I think Eric will, because Eric also has the design for Hillsdale and the last project, but we do not have the capacity to provide fire protection in a large volume. The line is smaller there, so the volume's not there for continuous use. But in case of emergency, it would provide your basic, to keep your jail up and going, probably. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying that it will not operate the fire protection and stuff like that, and Eric can explain that a little more. But
it's limited in what pressure and flow it could provide, but essentially it would do what you're saying, is provide water in an emergency. And IDEM, they really promoted this when they started looking at the wellhead protection programs, where if a well field became contaminated, if a community system had a connection to another system, that could help them in that type of situation.
I think Cayuga and Georgetown have a relationship like that, if I'm not mistaken.
I know Fayette and Paris does have that capability. When they're in Paris, Illinois, ran water to Paris, to Fayette Water, we had the pit put in with a ready for a spool piece to put in case of emergency. We just had a situation happen here a couple months ago. We lost all of our wells in the Hillsdale bottoms, and we thought we was going to have water hauled in. We thought, that's a big responsibility when the wells go out, and we finally found out what was wrong and got it fixed. But this is something that will help the community. It's a win-win for everybody.
So Eric, for the ones out in the public, what's the total cost for the project, for the water line?
For the water piece, the total cost for construction that we would be adding is
$72,000, I believe it is.
It is. And I had broken that out into what would serve the jail, what would serve the Hillsdale connection, And then also, part of this, we're going to provide service to the Humane Society too. The total construction would be $212,000. That includes a 10% contingency. The service to the jail itself is roughly about half of that.
The other thing, people don't realize that the Humane Shelter, if you have anything to do with that, you realize there's a lot of people there that put in a lot of time. I mean, it's and I know that a couple of years ago they had their wells going bad, and I ran them a new line all the way up and hooked onto the existing fire protection water, or water coming on the main that comes across from the rise, and provided them continued water. And so therefore I think that both of these, you look at Hillsdale water, how can it be a service to them, how can we be a service to us, how can it, back and forth, but also I think it's important that the Park County Humane Shelter has drinkable water back there. Right now they just use it for their commodes and washing down. So these two things I think are important, very important to the community, to agencies that are very important, that we need to really look at this, and I think it's a plus for everybody. Right now with the jail, years ago, this has been one of my things I've been chasing for 5 years to get potable water. Mike knows that, because they have the disinfection unit, they have this and have that, and a jail should not have to have maintenance people, have people in their jail deputies taking care of these things, treating water. It shouldn't be. But this will resolve a major issue with the jail and help our two local entities that I think really deserve that type of attention.
I have a series of questions, I guess, or comments, one of the three. I don't believe that we want to enter into, at least in this contract, the issues with the construction, inspection, or those type fees, which accumulate to a total of $68,000, but about $34,000. So we'll probably eliminate that from this contract, or I'd like to.
I had set those tasks up as hourly, not to exceed. So if you don't use this, understanding you've got an architect, you've got a construction manager, I put those services in there. That way, if questions came up with bidding, there was a way that we could become involved and address a question, or something came up during construction. You have control whether you use this. I mean, if you want to take them out, that's fine, but that's why I put them in there, that if...
I understand.
So.
Yeah, it's not an indictment, it's just a comment. I'd like to keep those things separate personally. One thing though is that I compared this, a few weeks before that you provided an estimate of $27,500, and that has now turned out to be $34,000 now with some reason. That can you elaborate on that? On 10/26 you provide an estimate or proposal that was similar to this for basically the same services with one addition for $27,000, $27,500 I think it was.
I don't have that proposal in front of me, but I think that's after Mr. Yoakum added the Hillsdale connection. But I don't have that correspondence in front of me, but I can confirm what that was.
I believe it did, but anyway, we'll carry on. Is that the only reason for the increase in price or differences that you can think of? Without having it in front of you, I understand you're at a disadvantage.
With that, I think it was that plus the need for easements.
The easements were additional charges.
Since we are running down there and can't run in the highway right away, there were easements as well. I think that is the reason for that difference, but I will confirm that for you.
Does Hillsdale not already have easements since they're serving the jail now?
They don't.
Or the county
They don't
garage?
even have record that main exists. There's no mapping for it. So, having dealt with Hillsdale in the past, I doubt there's any record of any written easement.
Sure. Not directly tied to that, but has the RISE agreed that we can tie into or change this system accordingly?
Yes.
do we have something in writing from them at this point, or has there been a resolution or any agreements that's been previously signed?
They fully have been engaged with me and others in talking about it. As far as a written resolution, I don't know that one exists. They have the capacity to serve this, so that's not an issue. We will deal with IDEM and get their approval for this. But I think if you want something in writing, it's something you probably need to request their board to provide you.
Okay. Has same issue with Hillsdale, has Hillsdale agreed to tie into their system or to increase the capacity
I'll
of?
defer to Tim, I know he.
They have.
And they have that capacity to do so without getting further approval from IDEM or from any other entity?
There will be no problem with this.
You would not need an approval from IDEM for an emergency connection.
No problem with it. Like I said, I talked to Larry Southern, he's president of the board, about this, and he's very happy about it. It takes away a tremendous emergency situation. Like I said, we just experienced that here a while back, and it's important that there'll be no issue. I can get a letter from Hillsdale Water, whatever it takes to satisfy that question. There's no problem doing it.
We'll need to do, or I think we should do that anyway. In fact, there may be a tapping fee or something to that effect since we're adding the jail to this as well.
A what fee?
A tapping fee? I assume they have a tap fee. No?
I'm trying to figure out what you mean by a tapping fee. I mean, what would a tapping fee have to do with this
You
project?
mean like for a service?
Yeah, the jail doesn't have service from Hillsdale now. Is there not a
Jail,
fee?
no. Well, they're still not going to have it. They're only going to have it in case of emergency. So there's no issue there. They're still getting their water from Newport, from the rise and everything. The only thing this is going to be in case of emergency. So it's not even going to be hooked up. There'll be a pit there with a spool piece. If you have emergency, drop that spool piece in, because I don't want as far as from my standpoint, I don't want anyone connected directly to it without air separation. In case of emergency, we drop it in there. So there's no way that the valve would leak through or anything.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a billable connection. Essentially, there would be a valve in a vault, in a manhole, with an open spool piece that when you needed the connection, you bolt the spool piece in, open the valve, and the water could flow either way.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing within the contract, I'd like to have the deliverables defined and what is actually we're going to receive from HWC with regard to prints, electronic drawings. And as far as the specifications, plan sets, and the survey records of what's going to be set, what's anticipated to be set, and how we're going to receive that information. Going down to the third page, 3 of 9, we can agree that it's an instruments of service. That'll be fine for this time. But with those instruments of service, we do want to go ahead and define collectively what these documents and how we will be able to use these documents, and then that we will have access to these documents to be able to provide as-built through our construction, and that those will be in a format that can be used by our QAW and whoever our construction manager may be.
Yeah, they will be. I could define that in that clause, that they'll be in AutoCAD format that they can
Right.
use.
Down where we're basically acknowledging that these documents that will pay for everything concerning the unauthorized use of these, we will probably not agree to that. That's a paragraph plus paragraph of part 2 of use and ownership. If we have an issue, then you can sue us for it, and I don't think we'll have that issue, but we're not going to agree to paying your fees to sue us. That's the essence of it.
Sounds like we might need to clean up some of these language items.
That's where we're going.
Okay.
If you want to make the short of it, I was laying out the issues that we want to discuss. And what I'm going to, if you want to cut through the chase here a little bit, then what I'd like to do is for one of the commissioners to sit down with HWC and hammer out these, discuss these issues and come to the resolution to those, and then bring it back to the commissioners for approval. And that can be either another special meeting in a day or I guess it have to be 48 hours, or at the next regular commissioners meeting. But I'd
Either
like
that,
to.
or if you want to email me your comments of the language, if I don't see any issue with it, I'll just track change the contract, and we can resubmit it
Yeah.
in that format.
Sure, or however you want to do it.
I'm
That'd
open.
be best anyway, to give it to you first, so you can then ascertain what the issues might be or the differences might be.
Another question is how are we gonna do this contract with this water extension? Are we gonna include it in with the bid with the total package? Be bid out separately, or are we gonna, because it is a separate item that can be done, it can be done anytime independent of the jail project, right? And would you prefer it would be done before?
I think I prefer that it be all packaged together. That way it could be all bid as one package, and all the construction and everything else would be all together with the jail project. Because it is providing water for the jail, and then there's this component of it that is, tying in to those debts, so.
Because I want to back up on something. I think when I talk to you can help me out, former on the council, that is all put together. As far as payment wise, it's going to be going together with the bidding of the jail. That, help me if I'm wrong, the money, but that's all put, all the money's together right now. It's not separated, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's 20, yeah.
Okay. But also, I know that we do have, correct me if I'm wrong, we have several million, well, not several million, probably 3 million or 3.5 million, somewhere in there that's already appropriated for that jail project.
Yeah.
And so that, I think that option, I'd have to check to see if that option does exist, of the council maybe saying, hey, we got this money, it's going toward the jail, you want to go ahead and do it earlier. I'm just saying, is that something that you and Britton you guys, is that something that would work better if that project is done before the construction of the jail, so it's out of the way, or you want to do it? Or is there any, let's say there's any advantage or disadvantage of doing it a different way?
There could be if you did it separate, in that you could contract directly with a contractor that does that type of work, in lieu of bidding it all together, where you're going to have the contractor for the jail would have to subcontract potentially to a contractor that does water main work. Or you could bid it all together with the jail, and that piece be a separate contract division. It all depends on who you want to hire the contractor to build. It can really be done either way.
From a design standpoint, I don't think we're going to be ready to bid early enough to be separate from the jail. I think they're pretty much going to go
Probably not.
simultaneously. Right.
We've not even started, and it looks like we're going to be a little farther out.
So by the time, we get contracts in place, we do our design together and come up with the jail and the water line design, we're pretty much going to be ready to bid simultaneously, so.
And the point of entry or connection point coming into jail is still going to be the same as what is today, and none of that's going to be changed, right? It's according to what you're designing?
It'll be close to where
It'll be close.
It's in the same vicinity, it's just not the same point right now, because we are changing the location of our utilities and our central utility plant. So it'll be maybe 100 feet from where we are right now.
And what I had put together in our contract proposal, I assumed the service entry would be in the same place. Since I hadn't been able to talk to Sanjay about it before today, he and I talked briefly outside, and he said where they're planning to put the new facility, and it's close, it's within.
But it's a small item if they do it now or do it later. I mean, there's really no advantage of.
I don't see the advantage of that. Yeah, I would think keeping it together with the jail project would make the most sense, in my opinion.
Burton, or you guys got anything to say about that?
I do, but we can discuss that when we discuss the contracts and get that, unless you wanna do it now. How do you see this, being bid out? Is it gonna be through the construction manager as a number of different contracts for the different disciplines or as trades? Or is it gonna be a general contractor who will collect all that and we'll only be dealing with the general contractor?
I think based on discussions in the recent past, it is my understanding that this is going to be split up into multiple prime bids through the CM. Mechanical would include then plumbing and other disciplines of that where this aspect of it would fall into. The electrical might be another package that they want to bid out separately, and then the general trades would then include everything else that is not mechanical and electrical. So,
The county's been approached with two different ways of doing the construction management portion of it, as through the CMC and CMA. Any opinions on that from the design point of view and being able to work with the bid documents and the NACM?
we've worked with both types of delivery methods. We feel that both of them are successful with the right construction manager at the helm. As far as from a design standpoint, we would produce pretty much the same level of deliverables for either option. So it doesn't change what we have to do. We want to still make sure that what we are designing is conveyed accurately to the contractors that are going to bid it. And so we would be doing the same.
At what point does the CM need to be brought on board?
I think we should have had a CM on board already, but that being said, the sooner we can get that would be great. I mean, it helps to have their eyes on the project to make sure that we are meeting the budget that was set for the project, and any discrepancies or any issues that potentially could become, issues later on from a construction standpoint, from a design standpoint, to minimize change orders. That's something that having the CM look at it right now as we go through the next 3 to 4 months of design will definitely help the county.
Part of HWC's proposal has, how did you guys talk, or maybe this is for Mr. Smith, that there's a separate fire line as opposed to a single potable water line that serves both. Did you guys haven't talked about what the fire suppression system requires, or you have, or how's that being coordinated?
We have not had any design coordination meetings because we're not under contract.
Sure. Is his proposal, I assume you've seen it or you have not seen it?
I have seen it.
Is his proposal seem to be an accurate reflection of what you're designing, and as far as the fire suppression system goes and the potable water system go?
Yes.
And they do need 100 PSI delivered to the site, and we have sufficient volume.
Volume, yes, definitely.
Okay. Does this require a fire department connection, or is it just going to be ran off the fire pumps at the rise?
I think we still need a fire department connection on the building itself, yeah.
Okay.
Right now, we have is it an 8-inch ductile supply coming over here? Okay, that's fed off before. Is it still going to be fed off the incoming well supply going to? It's still the connection there. Still going to stay the same place, right? On the fire protection water.
Yes.
Nothing's going to change there, right? Okay.
This is quasi-related, but has anybody looked at the sewer side of it? You guys have worked with that too, right, with the rise? Has anybody looked at the capacity of that system?
Capacity, they have adequate capacity. They're about 50% capacity on their plant right now. So volume is not an issue. I did talk with Sanjay before the meeting. There is some concern on Rise's part about screening. There is a grinder in place that grinds up the waste that is conveyed to the treatment plant at Vermillion Rise. Instead of a screen or an auger where it would pull some of that material out of the waste stream, all this does is grind it up, and that material is causing problems at their plant. Ideally, if you go with a grinder as opposed to a mechanical screen that would pull waste out, you can put an auger with those grinders so that what is grinded up is augered out of the system and put in a dumpster. That is something that should be considered, certainly, to eliminate the problems that Verizon's facility is getting.
And those are solely because of the jail?
I'm sorry?
And those are solely because of the jail?
As far as I know, yes.
And does the lift station have the capacity for not only the current proposal of the pod, but the complete build out of the whole jail?
That I don't know. I've not been asked to look at that by either entity. That's something I think collectively we should look at, but I can't give you an answer.
We will be looking, and I don't have an answer
It's
to you right now.
pending, okay, sure.
We want to make sure that what we're designing is right, and also the deliverables to Vermillion Rise is what they would expect to see, and not something that they're going to deal with on the law.
I just wondering whether this contract ought to, because of timing and everything, whether this contract should be including some of that analysis, or whether you're doing analysis, or whether you require HWC's assistance or not, and whether that should be included in this now instead of waiting until later and having to readdress it.
The contract, the way it's written, will allow both of us to work together to address all of these issues, unless you feel otherwise.
It's not a deliverable on here.
There's no wastewater services in our contract.
I know.
We could, for simplicity's sake, I could put an hourly task in there to help coordinate between RISE and RKW on those issues. You know, and if it gets more elaborate, we could amend it, but I could put something in there to help with that coordination.
Okay. It's something we'll probably want to do, I think, at this.
Okay.
But we would have wastewater analysis and all of that stuff in our
Right.
contract itself. There might be a little help on the Vermillion Rise side of things where HWC might be able to help us.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know that we necessarily need a motion, but I would like to name one or more, I don't count more, but one of our commissioners to negotiate the contract with HWC and come back with a recommendation back to the commissioners for discussion and vote among in a public forum. And that's what I prefer to see. Does that need to be in the motion, or does it?
It can just be a voice vote. Here, you just have to remember whoever does that has to limit. They're receiving information, they're discussing, but the final action has to happen. The actual part where we bind the county to a contract has to occur in a public meeting.
Correct.
But you can by voice vote designate one of you to undergo that.
If I may, I think we are in the tail end of phase 2 of our design process. That's design development. We intend to have our documents ready by the 15th of this month.
Of January?
Yeah.
7 days?
That's the design development phase. That's phase 2 of the design.
Okay.
The construction document phase, we're intending to have ready April 1st. And having HWC involved right now will be needed for us to meet that deadline. So the sooner we can get HWC on board to work with us to meet that deadline, we appreciate it.
You need to clarify something for me a little bit. What I'm used to is that you do a certain portion of design, I'm just going to throw out percentages here, but 20%, 60%, 90%, you're done. And there's approval processes in which somebody agrees that the design should continue from that percent on each time. Are we doing that?
So our contract is written that you do get to approve every phase and authorization for us to proceed to the next phase. So on the 15th, we will have our design development, which is kind of 65% documents ready. We will be coming back to you and requesting permission to proceed to the next phase. And again, you know, in the interest of time to meet that deadline, we'd appreciate a quick approval to move on to construction documents.
And since we don't really have a schedule in front of us to do that, how much time are you allocating that we need to get back with you? 7 days, 2 days?
A week would be
a month?
great, yes. Anything more than a week is really going to stretch us to still meet that deadline.
Well, I think that the whole thing about this is communication through all this. And I think, like, we're having a meeting today, And I think we shouldn't ever feel like it's anything wrong with us having more meetings, you know, to get this thing going and to the whole process. So I think it's important what we're doing here today, and if you think, or you guys get together and say, hey, we need to get together, let us know. Give us a little bit, you know, time so we can get at least a 48-hour notice out, something. But I think that, you know, the big thing, I'm just saying that the communication between us is very, very important. And don't want you ever think that, yeah, I got to wait for 2 months to get an answer, or, you know, 2 weeks. But I think that we ought to let them know that we're here to work with them, and if something comes up and it needs, you know, to be addressed, that we want to make that door open, and more the communication will help all of us, I think.
I'm more used to the private side of doing things,
Hmm.
but is there a mechanism, John, in which we can work a little bit more directly? We've already allocated a certain amount of money, or the council has, at the commissioner's request, that this proceedings with the contractors can proceed a little bit quicker on these approvals. As far as the design plans, I can't see that being a issue to the public. And as far as the approvals and so forth go, it's not obligating any further monies to it.
Yeah, I think if we're not binding money, you could have someone advising, yeah, that's okay, you know, just as long as we're not binding the county to any particular action outside of a public meeting.
And I
But
think we can
if
do
you're
that
just
with our...
advising them, yeah, that design's, that's within what we agreed to, I think you're okay.
Oftentimes, avoiding quorum issues, a town board or a board of commissioners may appoint one person to sit in on design meetings with the architect and or engineer to get really more into the weeds of the documents, so you don't have to do it in a meeting where you've got everything present.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because you're not, like you said, you're not allocating money.
Yes, not allocating resources, not binding to final action, I think you're
Just keeping
fine.
the process moving.
Yeah.
And as soon as we get HWC under contract, I think we're there to do that. I guess we're already there to do that with RQAW at this point, right? Correct.
And it is our intent to meet the deadline to keep working at risk right after that phase is complete. So, you know, we will continue to progress the design to meet the deadline. It's just that approval process needs to be, you know, formally granted, I guess.
So do we want to appoint someone today for that? I mean, would you?
Yes, I do.
Would you be open? I'm asking Mr. Britton, would you be open to that? To you taking that position?
I will take that position.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
We'll need a statement or something for a voice vote.
Voice vote would be good enough. Any statement of assent?
All in favor of Britton Luther taking the, what would it say, the lead, the contact on this jail project between the commissioners and the engineering? Is that suitable?
I think that's good enough.
Got a motion?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
None?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. All opposed? Pass.
Thank you.
I'll make sure I forward all invites to any meetings that you're having with the sheriff, so you're copied on it and you can attend that.
One of the issues that I think that we've talked about, but maybe, well, two issues. What is we came back to the geothermal, the possibility of geothermal, and what, how do you all see this as a possibility of doing, and is the payback time justifiable what you're seeing, or what's your thoughts? You guys know more about it than I do, so.
So brief history about how this project developed. We do have the existing geothermal system at the facility right now. It's old, it's outdated, it requires a lot of maintenance. There's been times when it's, you know, had some work done and it's on its last legs pretty much. At the time the jail was built, there was no other alternate for energy. That was the only option. now there is a gas option that we can tap into to provide gas to the facility. So we were looking at that as being the primary option to provide energy to the facility. Since then, Commissioner Yocum mentioned that he would like us to look at probably using some kind of a geothermal system at the current jail, and seeing if a new or updated system would, give us a better return for our money. And with that in mind, we reached out to Amoresco to do some energy modeling, to do a comparison between using gas and using a new geothermal system, and comparing it to what we'd use if we were using gas. There's a couple of steps that are required to make sure that, the geothermal system, that if we do go that route, will work better than what the existing system has been performing so far. One of the things is to do an energy modeling system, to compare the two systems. The other thing would be to do some test bores, test wells, to make sure that we have the right conditions to do a geothermal system that will then, give us the benefits of the efficiency of the system. And the proposal that we got back from Amoresco was $14,000 plus minus dollars, which is a proposal that you have in front of you. And we believe there's a hybrid system that could work where we could have gas and a geothermal well system that could pay for itself in 5 to 10 years. That's the last set of numbers that I got from our engineer. But there is an upfront cost that has to be put in to do the evaluation to see if that's going to work. And I didn't know if you wanted to pursue that, or you were just wanting to say go with gas and be done with it.
How much was the upfront cost?
It was $14,000 to do the initial evaluation. If we did test wells after that analysis, that would be additional, I think, $20,000 for a couple of test wells. So there's a series of steps that we'd have to take. First, we have to do that initial evaluation for 14. Say, yes, this is beneficial, this will benefit the county in the long run. Then we do the test wells, and then the next steps would be to then.
So roughly $35,000 come up with a evaluation
Yes.
of that.
Well, we don't want to spend the $35,000 and then decide we don't want to do it.
That's what would happen.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
You
yeah.
would
I
have
mean,
to spend it to decide.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, if we're already slightly against it, then I'm not sure we'd want to spend that $35,000.
That is.
I mean, I don't know what their opinions are.
But what are they, I mean, I'm not holding you to this, or maybe Britain, maybe now you have the answer, but I know in geothermal, home-wise, I know what my return has been good. I know this is a whole different scale, but as far as what you speculate, or is it, you think it's a 5-year return, you think it's a 10, or you think it's a 15 or a 20? I mean, what have you guys know anything about that?
So that was a question that was put forward, and it was the 5 to 10 year range was where we thought.
5 to 10?
Yes.
So after 10 years, so you're free.
Right. The one thing I would caution you about geothermal is that it does require annual maintenance. It is something the county needs to commit to do for the life of the project. And, there's going to be some monies involved in that. So it's not just the initial upfront cost. You're going to get the benefits, but you're committing to doing that maintenance on a regular basis every year. And so eventually you will reap the benefits, but there's a commitment to be made.
The other thing about geothermal, I know in my system, which I'm finishing, but we have the hot water issue. I don't know if you know it, but in the summer you're trying to get rid of heat. You got to get rid of heat. You got to get rid of heat, and the more hot water you use, the more efficient that geothermal is. And we ain't doing that with Joe, are we? Any type of hot water from that geo?
No.
Well, like I said, in the summer you got all this excess heat, and you got to get rid of it. And so the more hot water you use, the more efficiency your geothermal works. And I know hot water is probably one of your things you use probably a lot of also. So really it eliminates, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys know more about this than I do, but you can possibly eliminate most of your hot water heating cost in the summer especially. Am I right, or someone?
There are systems that can then use the heat from the geothermal system to
Right.
heat water to then use in the facility. again, so, you know, how far do you want to take geothermal? Is it just purely for?
Well, if they do that study, I think surely the usage saved by a reduction of cost from the hot water really needs to be in there. I
That'll be
mean,
part
it
of
probably
it.
already is, but.
Right. So that initial evaluation will answer a lot of these questions that we have right now, without doing that energy modeling and analysis. It is speculative at best.
Okay.
The life of I know the wells have a longer period of life. What's the life of the geotechnical, or not geotechnical, the geothermal components, the mechanical components within the building? What are we looking at with those? Is it a 10-year life, 30-year life?
It's been on manufacturer warranty.
I don't have an answer for you. I can get you those answers.
That's fine.
But
Mr. Phelps, what's your experience so far with your geothermal system that you have now? And is it something that you would see a benefit to the jail?
the way I've got it, other thing is too.
But, so more than anything, but because maintenance wasn't done, we've never had annual maintenance. In fact, we started having problems with it several years back when they dug into it, put the new sewer system in. Since then, we've had to replace the motors and the pumps several times. We've got a newer style system or a fitted system that's in there now. But the chemical that's in there is basically eating the system from the inside out. It's got all kinds of nasty stuff.
Yeah.
And it just kept getting delayed about having that pumped out of there and proper chemicals put in because of this jail project. So that stuff's been running through there. Last few times they've tested it, it's had.
Algae?
Yeah, well, more than algae, there's some other problems. The fact is to the point now that when we have a leak, it's not really a swing because it's every couple of weeks we get leaks fixed in it. The entire facility smells like sewer. It's all just from that.
One of the big issues that I mean, in comparison between that and this is there will be no comparison. I mean, when.
Cost-wise, it probably is, but if we're going to do that, I don't have a problem with whatever way you guys choose. Somebody needs to be hired on an annual time period to know what they're doing with the geothermal system to come and take care of that. Because that's never been on the regular maintenance. I've been there since that place was built. It only gets maintenance when something breaks or leaks.
Yeah, well, I think when you're looking at something that's that old and you know good and well, the plumbing that was put in there is faulty, and right now you can't go in there and backflush, because if you backflush, you're probably gonna blow one apart. And you know, those issues and things that exist now would not be with the technology change and all that it's gonna be a world of difference, you know. And right now, like I said, we got vertical wells, we got horizontal. We've got two different systems there that, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
And I think that.
The horizontal system is the original. Vertical wells were put in because the horizontal fields wasn't working for the system. But we also have the issue that we found out that the lines were put in the horizontal system weren't manufactured after 1989, and yet in 1992 they were put on the ground here, and they had problems with them. So, I mean, I'm assuming that all those horizontal fields are coming out of there. The vertical ones is right where this building is going, so we have to do something there.
Of course, if we do anything, it have to be vertical.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way, take too much area.
We don't have too much area, so we were thinking, 300-400 feet deep wells. And again, we would have to evaluate what is going to give us the best returns for our investments.
Mike, what do we have in heating and cooling costs per year roughly? I ain't asked the exact figure, but if you would guess how much it costs you to heat and cool the jail, what is it?
We're all electric, so our electric bill is like $5,000 or $6,000 a month.
6,000?
5 to 6, about just under $6,000 a month.
And that does control your heating and cooling, all in that 5,000 to 6,000.
Year round, it says right about just under $6,000 a month.
Okay, so you're talking about $60,000, $65,000, $60,000 to $70,000 a year.
Where the electric grid is kicking in, heater grid, then you're going to see that pop up. Thankfully, this year we've not seen that so much yet. But yeah, January, February, you're you're gonna see that go up probably over in the 6,200 to 6,300 range.
So we'd say if it's 6,000, we're talking about $72,000 a year roughly. $6,000 a month times 12 would be 72, right?
That's for the current system.
What?
That's just for the current.
Yeah, that's what I'm
jail.
saying. And I wonder, well, you also got to back out how much are you already saving from your existing geothermal? So that's, to say that it'd all go away would not be a.
If it's really doing all that much right now, I don't know, you guys know that better than me, but I'd have to say it's not very efficient or not near efficient as it should be because of the junk that's in the system currently.
Okay.
So Sanjay, originally it was gas was the original plan?
The original plan was to use gas.
And so when did geothermal come into the picture again?
This was in the last couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted that option to be
Okay.
at least addressed, because doing this large of a project and not addressing the cost saving, possible cost saving is tremendous.
But we won't know the actual numbers unless we spend the 35,000.
Yeah, yeah.
You are gonna have to put that.
The
money-
35,000
Yes.
plus,
Plus
if
whatever
we
cost.
sink that, we probably are gonna go with it anyway, because I'd hate to see us, waste 35,000, but it's the annual maintenance that we don't know the cost of that either.
Well,
Because we can't expect, like Mike said, the regular maintenance guy to.
but we've had that
Look at
issue
that.
a long time ago about maintenance of jail.
Yeah, we don't.
I mean,
have-
that's
what
something.
I mean. That's what I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to, that's another cost we have to consider if we go that route.
Somebody that knows about geothermal needs to mess with that system. We've had people tinker with it over the years, but I probably called out one of the few professionals that's ever been out there. He wouldn't touch it because of those lines in the horizontal.
Yeah.
He said there's no way he's gonna try to flush that. He just thinks he knows what the liability would be, and he said he's not gonna do it.
Okay, I guess the question we got is, do we want to invest that amount of money in getting
But
that
the
answer?
initial investment's 14,000, yet that study says it
Yeah.
looks like it's positive, then you spend the rest of the, or additional monies to
do the
test it
test
out.
runs. That's
Yeah,
correct.
so the initial investment's 14,000 to decide whether you got it.
Was there a reason, Sanjay, why that wasn't considered in the beginning of the project? Why you guys had gas already? Was there already a discussion?
The history of the existing geothermal system
Okay.
and the opinions that everyone felt that that's
That
not
was
the way to
just
go.
I brought it up because.
Well, I mean, I know, I just didn't know if
Yeah.
they had a reason for it, or.
And with the gas available, we felt that was the simplest, most trusted system that we could go. Geothermal's always got these, caveats that if some work, some
Same
don't
thing.
work, and so we know gas is gonna work, and so.
I guess my opinion, Tim, would be that we forego that and stick with the gas, but that'd be my opinion.
I'm of the same opinion with the payout of 5 years to 10 years, 7 years being usually the maximum that we'd want to go on a payout on it. And given that it is a jail and that it's a public, and we don't necessarily keep care of our facilities as well as commissioners as they should be, I'm not necessarily in favor of adding another complicated system or another system to this either. And gas prices are still supposed to be reasonable into the future as well.
But I think also looking at that gas thing, I deal a lot in utilities, and I see on a national level what's going on. There is a major swing to gas, and I will just about vouch to say it here today that it'll come back and bite you, because once they know they got you, it's all going to change. I'm talking about from the national level. I'm not talking about just here. That is a big thing. That's what concerns me about this. If I know what I got here with this geothermal, I know what I got that. But you got a variable out there with gas that could do anything.
One of the
That's what
bigger
I-
issues I think we have, at least currently, is I'm not quite sure, is the possibility of using UV or ionization and the cleaning of the air, the transfer, the exchange rates and so forth. Is that already in the works for this?
Yes, I think our mechanical engineer had responded to some of your questions, answering those, so, if it helps, maybe at our next meeting, we can have him present, that way we can just, talk exactly those topics and get your questions answered.
I think he's answered them, I'm just trying to get it out to the.
Oh, to the public?
Yeah.
So we need to, I just want a voice vote, yes or no on that geo, so we know where to proceed from here. So, who's in favor, just say who's in favor of Jill, and then yes, and who's in, is that what?
Do you
Someone
want
help me
us
here.
to-
Yeah, it's good. A voice vote's good enough for that.
Okay, voice vote yes, and who's in favor?
This is in favor of the GL?
Yeah, of doing the study, not in favor
Oh,
of
okay,
doing.
just in favor of doing the study?
Not in favor of doing the project. That's a whole different,
Okay, I'll be a no on the.
okay.
I'll be a no as well.
Okay, I vote yes, it fails to pass. Thank you.
Are there any other questions I can answer on the jail project? I'd be happy to.
So when are we gonna make this decision, or Britton, you want to just go ahead and make it, or to make which process we're gonna do on this jail, or we haven't?
Or,
There's no decision to be made.
This is a design
yeah.
issue now, not our issue.
Okay.
We're not gonna be picking out every single
That's not,
component
no,
of
no,
the
no,
jail.
that's not what I'm talking about. Or who, are we gonna have a CMC, or?
Oh, you're
That's
talking
my
about the
question. It
construction
has nothing to
management,
do
yes.
with that. So when do we address that's my question.
We can address that now, if you want,
So,
if the hour's not too late. Thank you.
if you wanna present that, and we'll make a decision on it tonight, if you're,
I am in favor of just a traditional construction management contract and entertain a proposal. We can either, quite frankly, I would prefer us to come to agreement on a firm, a professional firm, and select that to represent us and go into interview and discussions. I don't have a firm picked out. Well, we picked out up to 3 firms and interviewed them and select from that, and then enter into negotiations as to their fees. So those are, I think, are our options. The other option is to do the CMC, which is relatively new. It's developed since 2017. What the CMC does is that the construction manager can come in and do up to a 20% of the project. So it doesn't really affect anything that the engineers are doing now. But what it does is that the CMC, the construction manager, has the opportunity to construct up to 20% of the project. They get to pick and choose what they want, and then they would let out the rest of the contracts to the other trades, whatever that may be, or other contractors. It's something that was developed in this state anyway, I believe up at Purdue. They started using that system back in 2017, and it's they continue to use it. Some people, I've never done it myself, never been involved in one, and I'm not sure that we're at a position in this county to be able to continue or to engage that. One of the advantages of a CMC is that there is a ceiling. When they come in and they provide a cost to this, the CM does, he'll collect the bids together and he'll guarantee the county will not exceed a certain price. That's one of the big pros to the CMC, the construction manager, constructor avenue. When we've done that in private practice, usually you can see an increase in price. Usually they have their numbers down pretty good. And what I've noticed is probably up to a 20% increase in the price of the project. And that's the reason for that is they guarantee that price. There's a maximum price to that project, minus any changes. Like if you would add geothermal into it, that kind of throws it out if he wasn't engaged in that initially. So it'd have to be something new added to it, but otherwise that's reduces the risk to the county, or it doesn't reduce the risk. It gives a top dollar that we will spend, maximum dollar that we will spend in the project. A regular construction manager, a CMA, basically we get the bids in and he will coordinate the trades and coordinate the contractors and build the project. If we have change orders, and along the way we absorb those change orders as they come. And that gets back to how good the specifications are, how good the construction manager is, whether we can stay on schedules. There's components in there that dictate whether that stays on and we have very few change orders or not. Our QAW is a very good design firm. HWC is as well. Would expect a high quality specification. We pretty well know what we are building, so the chances of us going outside the cost that we would expect to be maybe in the 2% range by the time we're done is what I would anticipate from this. Again, that's opinion. Don't look up the sky too hard. With that, though, we would see a higher increase, but we would have a guarantee of an upper price if we go with the CMC constructor portion of it. I'm just not comfortable with the CMC portion of it. I am comfortable with the construction management portion of it. I think we have enough expertise in the county and enough eyes on the projects that once we go through and once we get all the specifications, the design plans, I think we'll have a pretty solid project. And I would probably recommend that we can go with the CMA as opposed to the construction management constructor.
So, Brendan, if I could interject too, so a general contractor you're opposed to as well, that be? I didn't hear you say anything about it, so I wasn't.
Because we do, well, that gets back to whether, no, I would rather have a construction manager. I think we need one. I'm not in favor of a general contractor trying to run this project now.
But on these, if I can ask,
Well, that's up to Tim.
where do these change orders come from? And then isn't there some type of an authorization process before a change order would just be made and somebody take it and be made the bill?
That's the reason why you need a construction manager there. Yes, it gets back to how tight the contract specifications are and the bid documents of what they're actually bidding. Where they come about is whenever there's something that's not quite normal comes into play, and they would need to come back in and it wasn't in their bid documents. In other words, they didn't bid that portion of the work, or there is a change in the work condition that would change that. So that's where the change orders come in. If you have very loose bid documents and so forth, you can expect a lot of change orders. Again, we're not dealing with designers here or engineers here that do that type. We're not in a, I guess we're kind of in a hurry a little bit, but we're not in a hurry. We're doing prudent things here. We're doing it in a well-structured manner. And by doing that and by giving them the time to provide the documentation that they have, we should see very few change orders. Now we'll see change orders, but we should see very few change orders. Should be within our scope to be able to build this project. And that's the reason why I don't think that we need to go to a CMC where somebody's going to guarantee an upper range, of which they will cover any potential change orders, but they also have a risk, and they're going to build their price in to make sure that they don't exceed that risk. So but you can expect change orders, but it gets back to how well the documents are drafted. And if we push them too fast or too hard or don't give them enough information, then you'll see a lot of change orders. So I don't expect that.
So, Brendan, you said your recommendation was CMA?
Yes.
Right, CMA. I
That's
wouldn't
my
be,
recommendation.
Okay. I wouldn't be opposed to his recommendation, but I've advocated to you both too that I think an owner's rep is needed as well. I'll leave that up to you guys as well, but I think someone to protect the commissioners in the county. And I'll say if we have a great CMA, we may not need an owner's rep. But, I mean, if something does happen and we do need one, we have somebody there to protect the county. So that would be my recommendation as well in accordance to the CMA.
I think you make a good point. It gets back to what type of construction manager we get, because there are different types that do that.
So, I mean, we may get a really good one, but, I mean, and even if we do get a good one, maybe there are some things that get dropped, and if we have that owner's rep, just another layer of protection, I think, for the county at this big project. But
I would prefer to get a construction manager and decide on who that will be for the project before we would consider an owner's rep, because a construction manager can do both those jobs. But again, it gets back to who that might be and then our comfort level with them being able to perform both duties.
yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, with an owner's rep, you may not use them that much at all. You know, even if you already put one in place, you may not use them very much, depending on.
Well, this isn't an hourly wage.
Yeah, well, I know
they'll give us a price, and yeah, we don't pay them. Well, we won't be paying them by the hour.
So you want to make a motion that we proceed with the CMA?
I don't know if it needs to be in a motion. at this
Okay.
point. We need to collect, I think we should send out a RFP, request for proposal of up to three. It could be one, but up to three, no more than three. Firms to represent us as a construction manager and work with RQAW and HWC.
Just so you're aware, request for proposal is a term of art that requires a
I saw you
specific
pop up.
process. Whereas CMA, I think we passed an email around recently discussing that CMA is a purchase of service, which if memory serves, you can do through any manner that you deem the best way to do it. So just to keep the language tight. You're deciding to hire a CMA, but you're not necessarily requesting proposals, because then that binds you to a specific statutory process.
I think you could turn the RFQ.
Yeah, request for qualifications would probably be a better term.
Thank you, Eric. You're right. That's a better.
And that takes price out of
This is a professional service.
Yes.
It's not a.
construction.
You can consider everything from demeanor to how they dress when you talk to them.
Yep. Yes. I've been searching around and there's not, anyway, it's something that we need to discuss and decide whether we want to select one or entertain qualifications and interview.
And my question is to decide on this process, do we have to make a motion to what direction we're going? Or is that?
You just vote on which way you're going to go, or you're doing the CMA, CMC, which method you want to choose.
That's where I'm at. I mean, it's.
Well, I don't think we have to make a motion for a process, but if we're going to select one in that direction, then eventually we're going to have to interview. And I don't think that's a motion either. That's sitting out.
And just as long as it's obvious that the three of you have agreed on something, that would meet the
Right.
requirements.
I think it needs to come to a vote and decide if we're going to CMA or whatever. So at least we know we walk out of here. If you're trying to address that issue, at least you know where
Okay.
my limit or whatever it is. So you want to make a motion on this?
Well, I make a motion then, if we need a motion, I'll make a motion that we go through the process as construction manager, CMA, and that we, well, that's a motion. I'll make a motion that we go around the CMA process.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We will proceed in that direction. So,
And given that, I think that we're, to continue to just, or to carry that on a little bit further, we're behind the eight ball. That decision should have been made last year. Well, at least last year anyway. We'll leave it at that. It wasn't made. I think Sanjay, RQAW has indicated that they're at a position, or been at a position that CM would have helped, or should be in a position where they can help and make some decisions and watch what's being done, so that when we get to the point of going out for bids, that the process will run smoothly. I think we need to, by the next meeting, I guess we're going to do it by the next meeting, since it's not been discussed publicly nor privately, that we look at firms and come back with a recommendation at our next meeting, whether it's a special meeting or a scheduled meeting, either way. But I think that process needs to proceed, and I think there are candidates in the area that we could elect to use. So
that selection process, would you recommend bringing that back and we have another meeting to discuss that selection, or what?
I'm only comfortable so far with one firm that I can think of at this point. We can look at the others, but we can also go ahead and interview that firm and then come back and discuss, or if they don't satisfy our need to search for either another firm or firms to be able to satisfy our needs for a construction manager is what I suggest.
I would definitely like to see more than one. I mean, just, I mean, I know you may be comfortable with one, but I'd like to at least put these qualifications out and see who's interested and interview at least all three of us.
It would have to go out anyway, right?
Yeah.
No, this process, what we do is that we can go up to however many managers we want to interview. But what we do is we go out and we ask for interviews. We can pick those firms or we can ask them to submit. But typically we pick out up to 3 firms is what we would typically do. We would sit down and we would interview those firms. Cost doesn't matter anything about that at this point. You interview and you find a firm that meets your qualifications. And they meet what we need to be able to work with our designers, be able to complete the project. And through that interview process, we'll come down to a firm that we are comfortable with, that is going to do the job that we want them to do. We sit down with that firm, we select them, we sit down with them, and then we determine whether a cost, what a schedule would be, or the fees that will be assigned to that. Once we come to the agreement with those fees, then we would engage them into the process as a construction manager. If we can't come to agreement on the fees or what they're going to be doing, then we go to the next choice. So we go to the second one, and then we go through that same process with them until we come to an agreement on fee. Again, if we don't agree on whatever those fees are or what they're going to provide, then we go to the third one.
So it goes back to the thing, there still needs to be 3, or you have no choice.
No, well, yeah, we have no obligation to go to 3 or 4 or 5. There is no obligation. If that's what we decide, we can have as many as we want to interview.
Well, I would like to entertain at least 3, at
Yeah.
least for, to say that we've gave some evaluation. So my question is how we proceed from there. I mean, I think we ought to, do we need to have I think we have a difference here, which is fine, is good, but do we need to voice vote about what we want to do in this process instead of...
Yeah, just as long as there's some general statement of assent as to which way you guys are going to go, that's good enough to make a record of a decision.
So if we want up to 3, we would put a request for qualifications out. Is that my understanding?
That would be, I just was advising to stay away
Yeah,
from
yeah.
a
Where you
term
weren't
of
like
art.
where you weren't binding. Yeah, yeah.
And I have no problem with the selection, and I respect your opinion very much, or your
You're not going to hurt my
expertise, but-
feelings.
Huh?
You're not going to hurt my feelings.
No, but I'm saying because you're going to be one of the part of me to make a decision. But I think if we entertain 3, and then we're all going to decide on the right one anyway. So hopefully the right one. But I think I'm saying that my personal opinion is have at least 3 involved. It's all going to come down to 1 anyway. They're all going to be.
Do you want to select 3 that you're going to ask to come in and review, or are you going to wait for them to come in to
just to interview, face to face, and say, what do you have to offer? Let them do a presentation. That's all I'm asking, and then maybe we can make a decision.
That's not my question. My question is, are you going to select 3 to come in and talk to us? How are you going to find the 3?
He's asking if you're going to select them yourself, or you're going to put out the request for qualifications where they could come in. Would that be correct?
Request for qualifications to invited CMAs?
You're saying that either we do it by public posting, or we just make a decision which 3 we want to pick up. That's the I think we'll just select the 3 that.
Yeah, you're not required to open it.
Okay. Yeah, and you can get. I have no problem. You know more about this than I know I do. If you could come up with 3 that we could at least, have an interview and some type of.
Well, I guess my thing is on these other projects. Do a lot of people? I guess Braden, you're qualified, I guess, to pick 3. But I'm personally not. If you sent me out of this room to say, hey, go find a CMA, I can't say that I am. But I would also think that if we advertise this and put requests for qualifications for CMA, I think there's going to be people interested.
Yeah, but we advertise, it changes things, right?
The statute says the purchasing agency of a governmental body may address purchase services using any procedure the governmental body or the purchasing agency of the governmental body considers appropriate. So if it's a service, you purchase it how you wish to purchase it.
The thing to keep in mind here is that if you're going to go out and request people to come in and interview, a request for qualifications, as opposed to sending it to select groups to come in or ask them if there's an interest, then you're going to have a period of time in which you're going to have to let that sit out there, 2 weeks or whatever. You'll send it in the newspapers, send it to publications like ASCE or whatever. Then you'll get those in, then you're going to have to decide, set up interview times for these firms, whether it's 1, 5, 10, however many that would respond, if any. And then you're going to have to interview them. And by the time we're done with that process, you're going to be at a minimum of a month out, if not longer. And if that's acceptable, then just keep in mind what our schedule is.
Well, but I don't think we're talking about going that route. We're talking about you select 3, this week call me and say,
But,
just.
Tim, if I could interject, my problem is, Braden, correct me if I misunderstood you, you said you only had one firm you felt was qualified, right?
Well,
In the
not one
area?
that's qualified, but that one is in
That would
an
fit.
area that I think that would probably be interested in doing it.
So, if Tim asked you to find 3, you said you only found one, what's the, are you gonna diligently look for 2 other ones that are as good as that first one, or are you just gonna throw 2 names in there just because, you know what I mean? Just.
That's a trick question.
There is some integrity here, you know.
Well, I know, Britt, but at the same token, if we put out a request for qualifications, even though it takes a month,
Yeah, but,
you're gonna get people to come in.
yeah, but you have 2 other people deciding.
Well, I understand that, but
So,
that's, you just said, well, Britton, you go out and find 3, that's my concern.
Well, no, you have someone that has the expertise in that field to looking
Well,
at
there's
that
al-
route. That's what I'm saying, that's so.
I'll say that I'm opposed to that I would like to see a request for qualifications put out, would be my opinion, you guys can agree or disagree, but
But the
that'd be
request
mine.
with qualifications is a lengthy, help me here, with that, how much time would be involved if we went that route?
You could send requests for qualifications to selected vendors. You don't have to send it and make it a public document. So you can pick 3 or 4 that you want to get
Yeah.
people to respond and just send it directly to them and then interview as many or as few of them as you want.
I think the whole thing is, back to what you're talking about, is time. You already said, and I think you all know what, we're behind that, right? That should have already been done. And so I have, let's see here.
The list of qualified CMs who we feel are comfortable with doing this job, we can give you a list pretty quickly.
There you go. Then you don't have to worry about me.
Yep, good idea.
So, between HW and C, we can give you 5 names and you send RFQs to all 5 of them and.
Of course, are you biased now? Okay.
So you're talking about you supply us with a reference of a couple, and now that'd be a quick process, right? We could take your recommendation, next week we could say we're gonna meet with them, make a decision, walk away, and that's done. Am I on it?
We can have that done pretty quickly. I think you can even provide a draft version of an RFQ that John
There you go.
can use.
That's fine.
That'd make good balance to all this equation, I think.
Well, that takes me out of the equation, so that should satisfy RJ.
I was just making a point.
I
that-
understand.
Yeah, to the one.
So that's direction you all feel like, we're going to ask that
Now,
for.
who's gonna do this? Are we asking the auditor to
what-
send these out then, or?
She's the auditor.
Yeah. Are you gonna send out their RFQs to the various businesses? They'll give us a list of like 5 and a draft process. We'll get that to you. You'll send it out.
Okay. Now, with your information, can you send that in a proper form so that, as far as the request, that we can just,
Formatted like an official.
Yeah, that would be, and of course you can look at it too, but in the format we could just take and put it right into a posting.
It'll be a Word document. You can edit it for your needs and then
Okay.
you should know.
And we'll have a voice vote. Can we want to proceed, and we were talking about is in having RQEW submit 5 of these references, is that,
That's fine with me.
okay? Voice vote?
It just.
Is it just?
Yes.
The statutory requirement on something like that is that there's a statement of assent. If you want to be silly about it, like Britain could say, I think Bob would make a good janitor, and RJ could say, yo, that's a good idea, and you could be asleep in your chair, and that would be enough if the record reflects that was the decision made. So, that's my understanding of the law on the topic.
So we're gonna do this. Let's make it simple. If you could send that to us, and when could you have it ready?
End of day Monday.
Okay. And could you CC all three of us and
Yeah,
John?
they'll speed it way up if they're reading it as I am.
And I'm requesting that John signs off on it before you publish.
I'll send you something in email as soon as I read it.
It's not John's obligation, it's ours. He'll advise us.
Yeah.
Okay. One other question I had on the jail project itself, we talked about the floor elevation between the existing jail and the new jail, and
So the existing jail, the housing area is buried 4 feet into the ground. Looking at the construction of the proposed pod, it was our opinion that we do not bury the pre-engineered building in the ground and actually build it at grade. That would require a 4-foot ramp between the new housing and the existing facility. In our design, we do have the length for a ramp to be provided. In speaking with the jail commander, he didn't feel that that was going to be an issue at all. I think there's more costs and constructability issues with burying that building 4 feet underground. There is under slab drainage that you've got to take care of. There is fall for sewage and sanitary from the new pod to the existing, and that starts getting tight as you start traveling that long distance and not having enough fall to get to that pit. So from a lot of aspects, we feel that keeping the building at grade behind the existing jail and providing a ramp is the best solution for the castle.
Mike Phelps, you got any comment on that as far as the elevation change between the
We
two?
talked about it, none of us like having the ramp versus what he just talked about, extra cost, and we're putting an engineered building down 4 feet into the ground. I'm not a construction guy, I don't know what cost difference is, but if the ramp is what we're gonna have, I guess we'll have to do it.
And we have done similar construction. I think Greene County has a ramp between the addition and the existing facility. If somebody wants to see what it feels like or what it looks like, we'll be happy to.
And what was it? Was it 4 feet in 50, or what was that rate of?
It's 1 in 12, so you need
1 in what?
1 in 12, so 1 foot rise and 12 feet of run. So for 4 feet, you need a 48-foot ramp, and you can't have 48 continuous feet of ramp. You've got to have an intermediate landing. So the total equates out to about.
So it's going to go up and flat, and then up and flat. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
So it's about a total of 60 feet of ramp.
Okay. Any of you guys have any questions on that?
What county did you say that was, Sanjay? Greene County?
Yep.
I believe it's a design function and it should be left to the engineers to do that.
Okay. The other question is, as you well know, the geothermal lines do exist there,
Yes,
and so you're going to take those lines out, correct?
that is correct.
And they're approximately 6 feet deep, correct? Okay, and you're going to compact it back with what?
With gravel and whatever's required. Once we excavate that area, our geotechnical firm will determine what's the best method to compact it and get the bearing pressures we need.
Okay.
Is there an old septic field out there too, somewhere?
There is one on the north side, yep.
We're not gonna get into it then. Will it be in the construction footprint though, or laid down yard or anything like that?
It might be lay down area, but it's not in the building footprint area.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Any public got any comment or question, or? Mike, what is the jail population right now? The COVID's affected.
Today's like 47, 48.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? We have a lot more meetings to, or we're gonna eliminate probably some of them by delegating some things here, but, looking ahead, I think we're moving in the right direction. So, got a motion to close the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
Then we get to sign with a couple things.
Yeah, we got.
I do want to say one thing about what happened on the internet. I talked to Nate today, and Nate